Hello ladies and gentlemen, Panzer here, and today we're going to be talking about supports. Specifically, the support characters in Overwatch and what their role really is all about. And I'm not the best support player, I'm going to be completely honest about that, but thankfully I know somebody who's quite a lot better than me. So this time round I've brought along a guest to help me discuss the idea of how to play support characters in Overwatch. She's none other than Cuppcaake of twitch.tv/Cuppcaake. So, Cuppcaake, what are your preferred support characters to pick?
My number one pick is Mercy. I've really learned to master her in almost any situation. In a perfect world, I would always get to play her, but sometimes that's not realistic. So my next choice would be Zenyatta, and then Lucio.
Okay, so that's the sort of preferred picks I think of most compositions. But how do you decide which character would then be suitable for each match or team comp?
On almost all defense maps, I play Mercy because she's great at healing through large amounts of damage, which also builds her ult quickly. So ideally, if your tank goes down, you can get them right back up. Or at that first team push of theirs, you're able to bring your teammates back with the res. Which also avoids your team from making that long run back. If everyone is topped off, her pistol is great at helping your DPS get the picks. A lot of people would be surprised at how much damage that little weapon can do. Let's see, attack maps are pretty situational based on your team composition and also based on the enemy's team composition. I love picking Mercy when there's a Pharah on the team, or even if my team is able to get past the choke points really easily. It's so nice to have that Mercy res on attack. But if my team is getting held up at the choke, I will switch to Zenyatta or Lucio to add a little bit more damage and to also use that Transcendence or Sound Barrier to help push your team onto the point. If the enemy team is on attack and they have a Widowmaker or a Torbjorn turret, and you have either a Reinhardt shield up, or if you're really good at strafing behind a wall to avoid damage, Mercy's pistol is actually really good at taking them out pretty quickly, believe it or not. Well, that is unless, they have a really, really good Widowmaker, then don't waste your time. But definitely always help take out that turret. But say there's a Tracer or a Genji or something like that that keeps flanking, it's best to maybe switch to Lucio because he has that knockback and you can keep him off you. Or even if you are switching to Zenyatta, you can put the Discord orb on them, and that way your teammates can help focus them down quickly. But really, that's only going to be beneficial if your team will listen to your callouts and help you take them down.
Just going to the idea of the roles of support characters, especially different characters, performing slightly different roles. A lot of people refer to support characters as being sort of backline characters, or characters that should stay away from the front line. How true is this in your experience?
I would say to some extent that's true. I think Anna works really well in the backline because she is able to snipe heals to her teammates, but especially for Mercy, the whole goal of her ult is to bring your team back after they die. And that's not going to happen if you're in the front line and you get picked off first, or if you're caught up in the enemy's ult that wipes your team. So it is best when you have your ult to stay as far back as possible with Mercy. But at the same time, always being aware of flankers so you don't get taken out while you're back there. With Zenyatta, if you have your ult ready, you don't want to be too far in the back line because you want to be ready to use your Transcendence to save your team from the enemy ult, and you have to be in range for that. Same with Lucio Sound Barrier. But, sometimes as support, you have to pick up the slack from your DPS teammates who just aren't getting the kills or making the shots, and you have to be a little bit more aggressive with your damage abilities, which might mean moving up a little bit more to the front line. Sometimes, being a support is a lot more than just healing your teammates in a lot of situations.
Okay, so it sounds more like, you've got to be a little bit more versatile. You've got to be between the middle of the team towards the back line, maybe. Not exactly in the front, but towards the middle and back, and moving between them. And you mentioned some of the difficulties involved, like with, DPS players who maybe aren't up to scratch. But what do you find is the hardest part about playing a support role?
Okay, the hardest part about playing a support role, it would be finding the perfect balance between having patience and also being able to make quick thinking decisions. So, for example, if you're playing Mercy and you all of a sudden see that 2 pop up on your screen because 2 teammates just died, I see a lot of people who automatically just hit that Q. But you have to be quick to analyze the whole situation first. Are you in immediate danger to die in the next couple of seconds? No? Okay, then look at how your other teammates are doing. Is your tank on the verge of dying and there's no way to heal through the damage? Yes. Then, okay, wait. And when that third person goes down, you now res 3 people instead of 2. Now your tank doesn't have to run all the way back. You have to be a multitasker, because not only do you need to be aware of your team's positions and their health bars, you also have to be aware of your enemy team positions, all at the same time. That way you can really calculate which teammate is about to need to be focused more on heals. You just really have to be aware of your surroundings. A lot of times it's you as a support that has to listen for things like the Reaper teleporting in the back because you're, further in the back line. Or it's you as support that has to notice that the Tracer just went around the left side because your teammate was too, far pushed up to notice. You just always have to be alert.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like situational awareness is the biggest part about playing support. Knowing, like you said, knowing where your team is, what their status is, and of course what the enemy team is doing. Especially when it comes to flankers, I think one thing that I've noticed as well is if I'm playing Mercy or Zenyatta is I tend to end up being the main target flankers. After all, that is their role. So, being on top of the callouts is definitely really important. But when it comes to the rest of your team, what do you feel the rest of your team could do to help make your job as a support character easier?
So the most important thing your team can do to help you support better is probably positioning, because it's impossible to heal your team when you have one teammate who goes into a corridor to the right and you have another teammate going into a corridor to the left, and both are spamming for heals and you have no line of sight to anyone. So, if there's a Lucio, you need to stay by your Lucio if you need heals. If your Lucio or Zenyatta has their ult ready, you need to stay, nearby for them. So that way for the next team push, you can benefit from the heals. If there's a Mercy, have line of sight so she can fly up to you to either heal you or even just, to get her out of harm's way. And let's see, if she has ult, die close to your other dead teammates so that way they're in range, and that way they can all be res together and she's not having to decide, which 2 are getting res and which one can't. Also, another big thing is do not run towards your Mercy with 4 enemies chasing you, so that way they take her down with you and then she can't res anyone. Also, just protecting your support. Be aware of where your support is and who keeps going after them. We have to multitask as support, so it's just helpful if they can't too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I think every support player would really hope the team, plays ball with them, essentially. You know, keeping on top of the counters as well, and keeping line of sight seems to be the sort of order of the day. But if there was a player who's never really played a support character before and is picking it up for the first time, what advice would you give them to start off with?
So most important thing is, I would say, to just practice your positioning for healing your teammates. You know, it takes a little while to get it down, where you should be standing, where you should not be standing, how far away you should be, how close you should be. Just practice, your positioning. But also, also practicing your aim. A lot of people think sport is really easy because you don't really have to, be doing damage and aiming at your targets, but aim is really important as a support hero as well. A little bit of damage can go a long way. If there's an enemy getting away and is that one shot from death, practice hitting that one shot on them, since you have the advantage of fairly long, range damage. And that way your DPS doesn't have to chase them down, and they can just focus big damage to the other enemies. Also practice callouts. Support callouts are very important. You need to be vocal in comms if you're going to play support. You need to let your team know that you have your ult ready, so the team can coordinate their ults with yours. If you're playing Zenyatta, you need to call out who your Discord orb is on. You need to practice those callouts. Also, calling out the people that are flanking behind so your team can help you. If you're on a team that likes to run in and die one at a time, coordinate for them to group up and go in with you. Just, take charge of the callouts, especially if no one else is.
In my position as well, as somebody who's kind of just learning support, I don't have the most number of hours in it. I think that's definitely very, very useful advice there. But thank you for joining me for this, Cuppcaake. If you want to check out more of Cuppcaake, probably one of the best support players I've seen in a while, you can catch her over at twitch.tv/Cuppcaake, that's with 2 P's and 2 A's. And thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
But that about wraps it up for this discussion. Let me know what you guys think. Is there a true proper way to play a support character, or is it really dependent on your own individual playstyle? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and also don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And don't forget to go over and check out Cuppcaake's Twitch channel and YouTube as well. My name is Panzer, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.